Thank you everyone for joining us for Outdoor Lads annual general meeting in 2021. My name is Matt Tennant. I am the chair of the trustee board and I will be looking after the meeting this evening. Again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is our second digital AGM after the success of last year, and of course for those who joined us at the members meeting in March. We wanted again to run our AGM digital to allow as many people to access it as possible. So this, gentlemen, is our 15th year as a charity, and this is quite a special AGM for the organisation for a number of reasons. Firstly, this year, Outdoor Lads celebrated our 15th birthday event. So the origins of Outdoor Lads started back in the winter of 2006, where a group of guys ran a camp up in the Lake District. And from that moment, Outdoor Lads was born and became the organisation that it is today. So back in August of this year, we were able to run our 15th birthday party event, our kind of first big real event after the COVID lockdown, which in itself was quite an achievement. The other important moment for this AGM in 2021 is we are now kind of at the point where the organisation is coming out the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic and looking to the future in terms of our events and getting us back on a level playing field. At the AGM last year, we spoke a lot about the uncertainty and the challenges that the organisation was facing back then. And though we're in a much more certain position compared to where we were 12 months ago, there are a number of challenges that we still face. So the meeting tonight really has two main focuses. The first is looking back the last 12 to 18 months, our reflections of the impact of the pandemic on the organisation and the steps that we took forward, and then looking forward at the next 12 to 18 months about what does the future of Outdoor Lads hold and what are the opportunities that we can take advantage of. Up on the screen is an article that was written in the Blacks magazine, and I think it's a lovely summary of what the charity is and a lovely reflection of where we are at today. Okay, so for those that have joined the AGM before, this should be reasonably standard for you, but for those new members and for the people who've joined the AGM for the first time, this is the aims of the meeting this evening. So firstly, the trustees and yourselves have our legal obligations that we need to undertake. We'll be asking you to vote on the minutes of the 2020 AGM. Then we'll be looking at the audited accounts for 2020 to 2021, which we'll be asking you to approve. And then we've got the voting of the trustees. Second purpose of the meeting tonight is to understand and recognise the challenges that we still face as a charity. Though I said we are coming out the other side of the COVID pandemic, we are not out of the woods, and I kind of want us all to collectively kind of understand some of the challenges that we still face. This meeting is about giving you as members confidence that we are running the charity correctly. We are your elected trustees on the board, and this is your kind of opportunity to hold us to account for the decisions and the actions that we have taken. The fourth and probably one of the most important elements of tonight is to celebrate. We have been through a very, very difficult period as a charity, and the work of everyone at this meeting and in this organisation has meant that we are here today, and it's quite right that we celebrate what we collectively have achieved as an organisation. And then lastly, to inspire hopefully those on the call this evening to potentially get involved, whether it be through volunteering to become a leader or giving maybe something back to the organisation because you have a particular interest or skill set or background which you think might have helped Outdoor Lads. So hopefully that's nice and clear in terms of what we're going to be going through this evening. Okay, so the agenda for tonight then. So for the frequent flyers of the AGM meeting, a few little bits that are going to be done different compared to previous years. We are going to be doing all of the formal business, so the voting of the AGM minutes, and there is a typo, that should be 2020 minutes, the financial accounts and the elections is going to be at the start of the meeting this evening. So we're going to get all the formal business out the way quickly to begin with, and then we'll go back to the to kind of the reflections and the kind of observations and things about what's happening in the rest of the year. So once we get through the formal business, we'll be looking at our year in review, so what's happened to Outdoor Lads in the last 12 months, how we've done currently, so getting our event program back off the ground from the end of the pandemic till now, and then looking at the future. Third section of the meeting tonight, what I often think is the best section, is going to be our wonderful volunteer awards, where we're going to be talking and recognising the amazing work that our volunteers have done, and then any other business right at the end of the meeting. So that should be the agenda for today. Okay, so all the documentation that you should find on the AGM should be available on the event page. So on the event page that you should have all signed up to, you will then have a link to a document section, and you'll find the agenda, the accounts, and the trustees report for this year and the minutes of last year. Slightly new format to the annual report compared to previous years, for those that have read it and had a look. One of the things that we wanted to do for this year, given the fact that 2020 to 2021 was such a different year in terms of ODL, is a lot of the content that you might have seen in previous AGMs, event numbers, membership numbers, etc., we put a lot of that detail in the annual report for this year, as hopefully give the AGM a bit of a slicker, a bit more of a streamlined feel. It's the first time we've tried to do this, and I hope you guys enjoy the document. I think it looks really good, and hopefully how we will do the annual report going forward. On that note, I want to give thanks to Dan in the ODL office who pulled the annual report together for this year, and I hope we can all agree it looks really good, and I think it's a lovely report for this year. Okay, so the last little bit of housekeeping before we actually get into the main section of the meeting tonight, just in terms of the format of the meeting. Now, I'm sure many of us are well tuned about how online and virtual meetings work these days. So questions can be answered in the Q&A function of the Zoom call. And so we really encourage people, if you have questions, to use the Q&A function of the meeting. We've got some designated question answerers this evening. So we've got Liam Russell, who is our member of staff. We've got Dan Barcroft and Neil Sharp who are also trustees, and they will be answering your questions tonight in the Q&A feature. There may be some questions they want to throw back to trustees, and that's absolutely fine. Sometimes we can answer in the meeting itself. We may not be able to answer all your questions tonight. Sometimes we don't know the answer. Sometimes we need to go find out what it is. As of last year, any unanswered questions, we will make sure they're published with the AGM minutes when they go online. If anyone does want to ask an actual question in the meeting itself, you can use the raise hand feature, which is in there, and then Simon will give you the virtual talking stick. All I'll say is if you do have a question that you'd like to actually ask in the meeting itself, please keep it sort of short and sharp. And if it's kind of a longer question or needs a bit more detail, please use the chat function. So in just a second, we will crack on to the formal business where you'll be asked to vote on something. So there'll be 3 items that we'll be voting on tonight: minutes, accepting of the audited accounts from 20 to 2021, and then the trustee election. So when a vote happens, there should be a vote box that pops up on your screen, and you will be able to cast your vote.
And speaking of that, Matt, we have a test poll if anybody would like to have a quick go of that, make sure it works for everyone before we move into the legal section.
Absolutely. Simon, do you want to fire up the test poll for everyone to have a go at?
There we go. So it should now all be popping up on your screens, your devices. Doesn't matter which one you choose, just choose something and make sure it goes through. If anyone does have any trouble accessing any of this, do please give me a shout just so I can go and fiddle around with the settings. But it looks like we're getting, lots of people are responding to it. So
super, thank you. If anyone does have any problem with the voting, please do drop Liam or Simon a message throughout the meeting and we will sort that out. Right, the last thing from my opening section and the housekeeping is the minutes of this AGM are going to be recorded. So we will stick it on the link to the AGM once it's published in a couple of days' time, so you can watch back as you wish. Right, gentlemen, that I think is all of the formal housekeeping and welcomes out the way. And if it's all right with everybody, we will then move into the first act of business then, which is if my slides move, the minutes of the AGM 2020. So for those joining us for the first time, the minutes are draft up until the next AGM a year later. And this we ask the current membership to vote. So then, the first question that I will pose out to everyone joining is, can I ask for those that attended the AGM in 2020, are there any concerns around the accuracy of the minutes? Trustees on chat, are there any questions or comments that have come up? Nope. Okay, well, perfect. Okay, so if there are no questions or challenges to the accuracy of the minutes, then I will need two current members who are happy to propose and then second the motion to accept the minutes. So if you would like to propose the motion, could you please type your name into the chat function, and I will ask one of my colleagues to select a proposer. So can I ask, please, if anyone would like to propose the minutes of the 2020 AGM? Gentlemen, can I have a name for the minutes?
Gerard Swan proposed first.
Gerard, congratulations, you are the proposer of the minutes. So Gerard has proposed, and seconder, please. So as someone to second the motion. Again, if you would like to second, please type your name into the box and Liam will select someone.
Looks like
Okay.
Kevin Boyne has offered to second.
Fantastic.
People are using the chat rather than the Q&A, Matt.
Okay, that's fine. So I think when we do the proposing in the seconder, we'll probably put it in the chat, but that's fine. We have a proposer and we have a seconder. So Liam, have we got those 2 minutes?
Yeah, I've got those down. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. All right then, gentlemen, we will do our first vote of the evening, which is to accept the minutes of the 2020 AGM. So Simon, could you please publish the poll?
There you go, it should be live. Everyone should have access to it.
Right then, thank you, gents. Please cast your ballot. Simon will just give it a couple of moments to allow people to do it.
Yep, I can see the answers coming in. We've had over 100 replies so far. There's another 20 people if you'd like to cast your vote. I can't really do the countdown theme music. I'll see what I can do for later. How about that?
All right then, Simon, I think we will call the vote there then, please. So if you could please put the results up.
Okay, and there we go. So
fantastic. So that is very much in favour. Thank you very much, gents. That is the AGM minutes of last year approved. So thank you very much. Okay. Right then, so the next, we move on then to the next formal piece of business this evening, which is going to be around the finance section. So now I'd like to hand over to Niels, who is Outdoor Labs' current treasurer, and Niels is going to be taking us through the various finance slides. So Niels, I will hand the meeting over to yourself.
Thanks a lot, Matt. If you could give me the first slide. Perfect. So in this section, I'll cover, and apologies, I will be looking down to check with my notes occasionally to get it right. So I'll be covering the charity's performance for the financial year to the end of March 2021. And also look a little bit at the current financial year. So I appreciate you're not here because of the finances. So I'll try to make this as efficient as possible, but you probably got me for the next 10 minutes, I'm afraid. So firstly, I should just say I was co-opted to the board in April, so I wasn't part of the board during the financial year in question. So I can't take any credit for all the good work that was undertaken during the financial year to March. So at the beginning of the last financial year, which was also the start of the first lockdown, our financial position was not great at all. So at that point, there was a risk that ODL was not going to survive the pandemic. Obviously, event sales fell off a cliff. However, the actions of the board, our staff, coordinator, leaders, and also many members helped us survive. And things like furlough, cost savings, and obviously members sticking with us mean that we're still here today. In fact, we ended the financial year with a small profit of £10,000 before depreciation. So that's the green number on the screen. And that compares with losses for both 2019 and 2020. So a good outcome considering the circumstances. We did make a small loss after depreciation, but much decreased, as you can tell from prior years. If you're not aware of what depreciation is, you really just need to know it's a non-cash item, and for ODL, it basically represents the assumed fall in the value of our website. But it's fair to say that in the real world, our website doesn't actually have any monetary value. We couldn't sell it for cash. So the numbers I've talked about can all be found in the table on the screen. The last row in that table is free reserves. You won't find that number in the actual accounts. Free reserves are calculated by subtracting fixed assets from unrestricted reserves. I know it's getting a little technical, but that number is important because it basically represents the funds we have readily available for a rainy day. And we currently have a policy to have free reserves of £70,000. So clearly at 20,000 in the piggy bank, we are at the end of the last financial year, we were well below target. However, things have changed during this financial year, and I'll come on to that very shortly. So if we could move on to the next slide, I will quickly talk about where we're at the moment. So what are we facing this financial year? Well, most of our program for the first quarter, so April, May, and June, had to be cancelled or postponed. Most importantly, we couldn't run Big Spring Camp, which is our most profitable event of the year. Also, for the whole of the financial year, the number of paid for event spaces will be down compared to a normal year. So obviously not compared to the last financial year, but say the year before. So at the operating level, it's very possible we could see a modest financial loss during this financial year. But that very much depends on the success or otherwise of our autumn and spring hostel program. So please get buying. The final thing I wanted to mention, and there's some good news here, is VAT. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. So in May this year, we received a VAT refund of £106,000. So you will already have seen that from the accounts. That's obviously extremely good news. But let me just run through the history of the claim and the timeline. So in May 2020, we put in a claim to HMRC for repayment of past VAT of £106,000. In June 2020, that was rejected, essentially because HMRC took the view that ODL is a social club. We immediately appealed, but then things went quiet for almost a year. And so in May this year, out of the blue, we received the full claim of £106,000. However, the letter we got with that money said that they paid us the money because they'd taken so long to review the appeal. So we didn't actually officially win the appeal. HMRC just decided that to give us the money without really reviewing the claim. That was obviously unsatisfactory to us, not receiving the money, but not knowing whether they felt that we should have had the money. And it left us in the dark about future events. So, but in June, we got a follow-up letter, which stated that, it basically just stated that we should charge VAT if an event was more social than sports related. So that was marginally more helpful, but still left plenty of uncertainty. So since then, we've been discussing next steps with our VAT advisor. Next slide, please, Matt. So yes, just before we move on, let's just take a second to reflect on the outcome, which is hugely positive. ODL is now £106,000 better off at a time where we really needed that boost. Matt, next slide, please. So what are we doing about VAT going forwards? Well, firstly, let me just mention that because of the refund, our free reserves are now fully funded. I mentioned that earlier and said I would come on to that. So for the time being, ODL's future is very secure. The next step is for us to send a letter to HMRC setting out how we intend to apply their guidance. If they don't object, that gives us more clarity about how to proceed. We will then aim to avoid activities which attract VAT. This means that for paid events, we will major on sports and activities rather than the social aspects. But please rest assured that if you're going on a weekend event, you will not be forced to do any activities, and the social side will not disappear and probably not even decrease. We just need to make clear in our marketing that the purpose of each event is sports and activities, and that the social side is just a nice extra. This feels to us like clarification rather than an actual change on the grounds. We then need to work through our events program, and this has actually already started. So as an example, the event page for next year's Big Spring Camp has been amended. Next slide, please. So we've got this money, and what do we want to do with that? Well, the board is now considering how to put the VAT funds to the best possible use for the members. Again, our free reserves are now fully funded. However, the board is working on a new reserves policy. Part of that will likely be pre-funding some or all of the next big website update and put money aside for that. We're also talking about investing in training new and existing leaders so we can put on more and more diverse events. Finally, we probably need to spend a relatively modest amount on upgrading some of our tech and equipment. Next slide, please. So, I would imagine that this may lead to, this VAT change may lead to quite a few questions from the members. So I'll just cover a couple of questions in anticipation of what may come later. So how is this going to affect me as a member going forward? Well, first question is, I've already paid VAT on a future event. Will I get a refund? Well, no, I'm afraid you will not get a partial refund. We assume that at the time you signed up to the event, you decided the total price you had to pay was value for money. But also, and this is probably more important, Outdoor Lads may make an operating loss this year. So we don't actually have the funds or the income to lower prices in this way at the moment. You may also be considering, ask, will we be getting a lower annual membership fee? Well, at the moment, no. As already mentioned, we are at risk of an operating loss this year. So we can't do anything to lower our income just now, but it could be an option for the future. Equally, members may prefer to invest the VAT savings in OGL, for instance, and more leader training. So any feedback we get from members during the strategic review will certainly help the board make those decisions, sorry. Finally, will events now be 20% cheaper? That would be great, but no, unfortunately not. The reason is that even if we pass on the full benefit of the VAT change for events yet to be published, it will not result in a 20% decrease in prices. So this is because our suppliers will still be adding VAT to their invoices to us, and ODL will have to pay that, and therefore we have to pay that on to, or we have to add that to our prices. So to make that clearer, I've added a very simplified example on this slide that's in green. So for instance, under the old approach, if ODL is charged £200 for 10 camping spaces or £20 per person, we also charged VAT on that by the site owner, and we therefore end up paying £240 in total. We then add 30% to the base price of £20, taking that to £26 per person. So when you check out, you'll see a price of £26 plus VAT of 20% on the checkout screen. So that takes you to £31.20. So under the new approach, where ODL will not be paying VAT, or hopefully will not be paying VAT to HMRC, we start out in the same way, and therefore ODL pays £240 for 10 spaces to the site owner. Again, we add 30% to the per person to the cost of £20, taking us to 26. However, we then deviate, and so we've ODL have paid £4 per space in VAT, and we have to add that on to the price. So we add £4 on to your total, and that takes us to £30. So effectively in this scenario, the saving is just under 4%, and obviously nowhere near 20%, but still, still meaningful. So that was all I wanted to cover in respect of our finances. So if I can now hand back, because I think we're ready to hopefully vote on the financial statements. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Niels. What I will probably do, if that's all right, is we'll probably pause, if that's all right, and see if we have any questions that have come in from the members that we need to answer. So while the guys are just getting some questions ready, obviously this VAT news was probably one of the best pieces of news that us as an organisation received this summer. I think it's probably fair to say we should give our thanks to the previous Treasurer, Ted Youngman. I'm not sure if Ted's on the call here, but Ted was pretty instrumental in getting this work together. So a big thank you to Ted. This is still very much a live issue for us as an organisation. I would have loved to have been able to come this evening and presented a whole plan of what we want to do with that money. But the position of the trustees, this is still very live as of today, and we are still working through some of the details. But it is a fundamental game changer for Outdoor Lads as us an organisation, what we want to do going forward. And there are some really exciting opportunities to be had around what could we do with that money to really unlock the potential of our leaders, our of all sorts. So, gents, have we got any questions from the floor that we need to answer?
Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Yes, so a couple of questions that have come in.
Liam, should we do any questions about the accounts first, and then we can move on to the VAT? So if you've got any questions on the accounts.
Yeah, well, so okay, on just the accounts. I saw the figures, but not sure if it shows if our finances are therefore okay for the coming year. So could we answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're probably between Niels and myself. So the audited accounts go from the 1st of March 2020 to the 31st of March of this year. And I think, have I got the dates right?
1st of April 2020.
Sorry, yeah, 1st of April 2020 to the 31st of March as of this year. So obviously now we're in September, so close to 6 months has moved on beyond that point there. So I think, Niels, are you able to kind of give just a small overview of what the kind of the financial position kind of is as of today?
Yeah. So I think I think in respect of, if you ignore the VAT, which is obviously hugely positive and basically underpins the position, I think from a income perspective, you know, we are clearly down from a normal year. Again, the first quarter, we couldn't do any paid for events. Big spring camp couldn't take place, and we make quite a lot of money from that. So I think the result is that without the VAT money, without taking the VAT money into account, we're likely to make a loss for this year. It's not certain. It depends on having a really successful autumn and winter in respect of our hostel events, and that's not certain. So that's why I'm saying that we could be making a loss from an operating perspective. But if you add the VAT money, which is in the income line, then you will see a huge bottom line profit for the year. There's no doubt about that.
Great, thank you, Neil. Okay, Liam, any other questions on the accounts?
On the accounts, what do we need to do to get ourselves onto a financially stable position?
Thanks, Liam. So there's a few main drivers that I think ODO needs to focus on in terms of getting our kind of books to a more level basis. One is, in previous years, we have suffered a little bit too much with too many, a too larger paid events program with not enough occupancy on those events. So I think one of the things that we are thinking about very carefully next year is around the number of hostel and camps that we pay, because if we have a slightly smaller program with a slightly high occupancy, I think that will help enormously. I think we also need to be looking at our the levels of our expenditure. I think one of the things with the pandemic has helped us identify where potential savings and cost control measures can be put in. So I think probably a combination of those two, I think will really help. Niels, is there anything more that you want to add on top of that?
I would say, and it's not necessarily a financial thing as such, but I think the best thing we can do, and we don't have full control over that, is to increase our paid membership, and basically make the ODL Magic available to more members, because that's the best way to secure the long-term future of the organisation.
Super, thanks, Niels. Liam, any more questions?
Yeah, so I'll answer this one as well, actually. Didn't we have some good income from the big summer camp on the 15th anniversary weekend? And yes, we did have some good income from both events. However, those events are in the current financial year, and the accounts obviously cover the previous financial year period. So yes, that's great, but it isn't something that's going to absolutely make the difference, and obviously is normally accounted for in our planning anyway. And then the only other one was an anonymous question about the accounts being difficult to read with the information on several different pages, and if it's our intent for members to read the accounts and comment, should we tidy them up slightly? I don't know if you want to answer that, Matt, or?
Yeah, I mean, if members do have any suggestions, I mean, our accounts are done by formal registered accountants, Beavers and Struthers. You can see their details in the account. You know, these are done by qualified accountants. So if anyone does have any suggestions or any ideas about how we can make the account simplified and easier to read, please do email them to Niels, myself. Our email addresses are up on the website, and I would welcome any suggestions about how we can make the accounts easier to read for members going forward. Okay, any other questions, Liam, on accounts?
There's one more there which we can ask Liam directly about the factors determining if something is social or sporting, Liam.
Yeah, so that's about the VAT issue. So essentially, almost everything is sporting. So we've had long conversations with our VAT specialist on this, and the answer comes down to is why we're there. So I know some people say, well, Big Spring Camp's all about drinking and parties. Actually, the reason we're at Big Spring Camp in North Wales is because for outdoor events, we're doing it somewhere where, it's mountains all around, there's all those other facilities close by, a bit of a playground, and that is the purpose for being there. The rest of it is incidental, and like any, a rugby club has rugby matches, and then in the evening there's a social life in the bar, which is very active, but the reason for being there is the rugby. And the same thing applies to us. The reason for being there is the outdoor activity, and the other bits are incidental. And so, yeah, in consultation with the VAT specialist, that's how we've determined that. So most things are social. I guess if we were doing a paid event going to Crazy Golf, that would be considered social. Those kind of events are few and far between.
Yeah, thank you. Just to reiterate, there will be no compulsory policy on rounders or playing football on events. So just be assured, even though obviously there's the focus on sporting and participation events, fundamentally ODL events are not going to change. Right, gents, I'm going to give a final opportunity for any questions on the audited accounts, and then we'll move on to questions about the...
I've got another question, sorry, on final figure for donations. That will be covered later on in the presentation, and a question on the input and output VAT. So essentially asking about how VAT has been calculated. I think that has been answered in the chat already, and also on this slide. So the event is, we charge VAT on the pre-VAT cost plus the markup. But we'll answer that more fully in the questions at the end.
I'm going to suggest, chaps, that the remaining questions in there can be answered via correspondence. If there's anything else that's majorly occurring to people, pop it into the Q&A, and our wonderful colleagues Neil and Dan will try and answer those as we go along. Super,
thank you. Okay, gents, we'll park questions then on the accounts. So are there any questions, Liam, that have come up on VAT that members have asked on the floor that we can try to answer?
I think we've covered those, Matt, now.
Yep. Okay. Well, if that's everything, then I guess I will give one final opportunity for any final questions or comments from the floor on either the statutory accounts or the VAT refund.
So I've got Neil Williams has raised his hand, which I think means he'd like to ask a question live.
Oh, and fantastic. Simon.
So Neil, you're now live. Please do not swear.
Hello. Yeah, sorry, just to clarify that question on the VAT. I'm just intrigued as to what the basis behind the claim was, as in was that effectively the in essence the £1.20 just over a very large number of events that got to that figure?
Yeah, I'll do our best to see if we can answer. So let me just go back a slide to the background. So very, very briefly, I'll try to give. So a couple of years ago, Outdoor Lads worked with a company called, Liam, I think it's called the Vat People. And they did a piece of work to look at Outdoor Lads' VAT status as a membership and participation-based organisation. And the premise of that report, essentially in the conclusion of these experts, said that we think Outdoor Lads as a sporting and our participation-based organisation should have a VAT exemption on membership fees and the certain of our paid events that we charge for. And as a result of that report, our previous treasurer and various members of the team in May 2020 and the VAT People, we wrote to HMRC and said, this is our status as an organisation. We think we are due a refund from you and what is going forward. So that's the basis of it. It's to do with our status as an organisation. And then HMRC, as Niels and others have determined, have also come to that conclusion. Does that help answer it, Neil?
Well, I'm more interested in the figure because it seems a very large figure if it's only a couple of quid per head per event. But I guess, is that because it goes back a very long way time-wise?
Yes, it does. Liam, can you help answer that?
So also a lot of that comes from the membership fee.
Oh, of course, yeah. So 20%.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the big win.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes more sense now. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, so the membership fee provides you access to sporting activities, and so that's the key one. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So it was kind of how do you get from a couple of quid per event to 100 and whatever thousand? That was all I was confused about. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Neil. Really good question. Okay, so then, gents, I think we've done the accounts, we've had questions on the accounts, we've had questions on the VAT then. So I think we now move to the formal business of approving the audited accounts from April the 1st, 2020 to the 31st of March 2021. So same as before in terms of the process, there should be a vote thing popping up on your screen where you can either vote for, against, or abstain. So that should be up now. So gents, I will ask you please to cast your ballot in terms of the accounts. We'll just give that a few minutes.
Yes.
A few moments, sorry, not a few minutes, a few moments to cast your vote.
If we can just give it another few seconds, just so we can make sure we've got a quorum vote on this, Matt. So I think if we give people 10 more seconds, and then I'm going to end the poll. And there we go. The poll's ended, and I'm going to share the results.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. So for the minutes then, Liam, that is the audited accounts approved for last year.
Yeah, thank you.
Super. Okay, well, thank you everyone for that. And again, I think just reflecting on, some of the challenges that ODL have had in the last 12 months, to suddenly receive such an amazing amount of money is going to be a pretty game changer for the organisation going forward. There will be, of course, suggestions, ideas, things that are coming up into people's mind. For those that were at summer camp this year, I believe, for example, some of our DJ equipment and the DJ stand has had quite a few years of usage. So I think we need to be throwing a couple of quid at buying a new DJ stand and a laptop for people to use. But this is still a very much a live issue. We don't have all of the answers to hand, but one of the exciting things about some of the work that we're going to be doing in terms of identifying priorities is coming out to you guys and asking what we're going to be doing and how we potentially should be best spending that money to best suit the organisation. So a really, really, really fantastic opportunity there. Okay, so we now then move on to the last element of business in terms of the formalities of this evening, which is going to be the elections. So again, for those who are reasonably old hand at the AGM, we vote each year on the appointment of new trustees to the board. So at this moment, I'm going to hand over to Liam Russell, who is our company secretary, who is going to take us through the vote.
Just before we do that, Matt, I think we need a proposer and a seconder for the accounts as well, and we've just gone past that bit without doing that, I'm afraid.
So if we can just have a couple of names for that, please.
Yeah, my apologies, gents. Yes, what I'm actually going to do, Simon, is I think for good governance, could you fire up that poll again? And I think we'll do the whole thing again, if that's all right. So.
Thank you.
My apologies, gents. Let's make sure we do this in the correct manner. So, yeah, absolutely. So again, for the audited accounts, we are going to need a proposer and a seconder, exactly the same as how we did the minutes of the meeting from last year. So if anyone is willing to propose the audited accounts for last year, could you type your name into the chat function and Liam will select somebody as the proposer?
Okay, well, we've got that already as well. So we've got Stephen Bush, who's acting as a proposer.
Yep.
And Tim Hooson to second.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Tim. So, Simon, if it's all right, would you be able to fire up the poll for a second time?
Yeah, and for good governance reasons, I'm creating it as a secondary poll so that we can record both of these in the minutes for everyone. So bear with me a second. There we go. Right, I'm going to launch another poll now. That should be on your screen. AGM to accept audited accounts for financial year 2021.
Perfect. Thank you, gents. My apologies for the confusion. Let's get through this and then we'll move on to the next section. So please, everyone, for a second time, please cast your ballots.
It wouldn't be an online meeting if someone wasn't either, muted whilst talking or.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll just give that another 10 seconds to allow, so we get the same number of votes coming in on that. So you can have 2 more people, please, to vote. Marv's, I'm going to close it in 5 seconds. There we go. Right. And I'm now going to share this with you.
Great, that's fantastic. So thank you again, everybody, for your second vote. That is the audited accounts for 2021 approved. Wonderful. I think we're all good. Fantastic. Okay, so we now move on then to the elections. So as mentioned before, I'm going to hand over to Liam, who is going to be our returning officer. So Liam, over to you, please.
Thank you. So hi everybody, I'm Liam. I'm the programme manager for Outdoor Lads. And a paid staff member. So I'm the returning officer as company secretary tonight. We have 4 people who are standing to be trustees on this occasion. They're all standing for a 3-year term of office. There's 4 people and there are more than 4 vacancies on the board. And so this is not a competitive election against each other, but each candidate does need half the votes plus 1 in order to be elected, if you like. Vote, as we have done already, for, against or abstain for each candidate. We have also had some proxy votes in advance, which will add to the figures that we take online tonight as well. I've got the 4 candidates and I'm going to ask them each in turn to say a short piece, a few words about their nomination. Their nominations have previously been made available to you via the website for you to vote on, for you to have a look, along with their proposers and seconders. So the first person I'm going to ask you to vote on tonight is Niels Pedersen, who is currently a co-opted board member and acting as the treasurer at the moment. I do need to let you know that the board recommends that you do vote for Niels, and that the intention is that if Niels is elected, he will take up the post of treasurer more formally. So Niels, can I hand over to you, please?
Thank you, Liam. So as Liam said, I'm Niels, and hello again. So I've been a member since 2007 and a walk leader since 2008. And as I think Liam mentioned, in April this year, I was co-opted to the board as the treasurer, and which is a role I've really enjoyed, and I hope to continue in that role. So a little bit about me and why I think I could be of use to Outdoor Lads. I spent 30 years in corporate finance working for Credit Suisse, Bank of America, and Barclays. I left paid work in July this year to focus on working in the third sector, not for personal gain, but just because that's something I enjoy. I've been a member of Amnesty International's Finance, Audit and Risk Committee since December 2019. And next month, I start a master's at City University of London studying charity accounting and financial management. So what would I focus on if I were to continue as the treasurer of OTL? Well, firstly, I want to make sure that OTL is resilient and secure for the future. Also, I'm keen to continue to support Danny Valentine with the strategic review and involve as many members as possible in that process. And beyond the strategic review, I would like to find ways to improve the communication between members and the board. So yes, that was me distilled down to about 1 minute. Back to you, Liam.
Thank you very much. So again, we'll go to the voting now. So hopefully, Simon, if you can put the voting panel up. Just to remind you, it's live, so you can vote for, against, or abstain for Niels. So please go ahead and place your vote. Give me a couple more seconds to place your vote. Okay, they seem to have stopped now, so we'll call that, I think. So I've got, to do some quick maths here. 109 people in the meeting and 21 voted by proxy for. Got none against in the meeting and 1 against by proxy, and 4 people have abstained in the meeting and 1 person abstained by proxy. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Niels, and welcome to the Outdoor Lads board. So we're moving on now then to Joey Payne. So Simon, if you could get ready to hand the microphone over to Joey. And Joe, if you could just give us again a few words about why you've put yourself forward to be a trustee.
Yeah, bear with me. I'm just going to make it so he can talk. There you go, Joey. You should be able to speak to us now.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Lovely, good. So I'm Joe Payne. I've been a member for about 5 years now. I joined out of boredom, really, and I found that the organisation gives so much. Most of my best friends are all members and people that I've met through this organisation. So I wanted to give something back. Ultimately, I had sort of 3 ideas that I wanted to work on. One was sort of member engagement, as sort of Niels said, with the board. I think if people can get a bit more engaged, and even if it's just a bit easier for people to get engaged, they're more likely to do so, and that gives us a bigger pool of ideas, a big, just gets the diversity up, and hopefully might spark a few ideas and get people wanting to volunteer at a few more interesting events. I'm a fitness instructor by profession, so I would obviously like to try and bring that into things, try and get a few more fitness-based and mental well-being events, and maybe get some partnerships with a couple of different mental well-being charities and a couple of different fitness places to try and hopefully bring that side into Outdoor Lads as well. And then ultimately, all of our volunteers give their time freely and wonderfully, and it's an amazing thing. And if we can do anything to streamline that process as much as possible and try and get it so that when people do volunteer, it's the smallest headache possible, if in fact not a headache at all. That's ultimately what I want to do on the board.
Thank you very much, Joey.
Sure.
So I think you're all becoming more familiar with this process now. So Simon, again, if you could put up the voting panel, and invite you to place your votes for, against, or abstain, please. A few more still to go.
Yep, just a few more.
Okay, last few seconds. Thank you very much. So in the meeting for, I have 103 and proxy 18. Against in the meeting, I have 1, and by proxy 3. And abstain in the meeting, I have 10 votes and 2 by proxy. So again, Joey, thank you very much, and welcome to the Outdoor Lads board. So moving on now to Danny McEwen-Henschel, who, as you probably know, is the current vice chair and therefore a current trustee as well. So Danny, can you take the floor, please?
Thanks a lot, Liam, and good evening, everyone. So as Liam was saying there, I currently serve as vice chair to the board at the moment, and this will be my 3rd term as a trustee in the current rotation. My focus, as has been the case for a number of years now, has been our big events programme, working closely with Liam and Dan in the office more recently, plus all of our amazing big events volunteers. So that's my sort of intention to continue that focus. Obviously, Niels was mentioning earlier the importance of our big events programme to the organisation, so it's to continue that as we return back to those events moving forward. In addition, also looking to grow the use of our Outdoor Lads bar as a private venture, which we've done so successfully for a few test events. One just recently, the weekend just gone, where we made £800 profit for the charity for the simple way of just using our bar and the skills that we offer and the service we provide to provide that to other organisations and events. So I look forward to hopefully receiving your vote to continue doing exactly that. Thanks, Liam.
Thank you, Danny. Okay, so Simon, can the voting panel again, please? And then when that comes up, if you'd all like to place your votes for, against, or abstain from Danny being re-elected. A few more seconds. There's definitely more people still to place a vote of some sort. Okay, we'll call it there. Thank you very much. So I have excuse me. So I have 94 people in the meeting and 20 by proxy, against 8 people in the meeting and 2 by proxy, and abstain 11 in the meeting and 1 by proxy. So again, thank you very much, Danny, and welcome back to the board. And then finally, we have Dave Banks. So Dave, if you could just say a few words, please, about why you've put yourself forward to be a trustee.
Bear with, I'm just making it so we can see and hear him. There we go, Dave. You should now be a panelist, so if you'd like to speak.
Is that me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
can hear you now.
Cool. Hi everyone, so I'm Dave Banks. I've been a member of Outdoor Lads now for the last 5 years. I'm a leader for 4 of them and South East Cycling Organiser for the last 2. I'm from an investment banking IT background, so I've been working closely with various board members for the last 18 months in sort of systems and data advisor role, which was recently formalised. So like I say, ODL has been a big part of my life, as I'm sure you could see from all those slides just before the AGM, been around a while. There's 3 areas which I feel I can contribute over the board. Diversity inclusion, member engagement, and operational control. Now, I believe that sport is for all. That's why I became leader. It's why I created the Anyone Any Bike events to introduce people to the sport and provide a supportive environment to get people participating. I have seen that ODL Magic isn't perceived as being for everyone. I've represented ODL at Out for Sport and various other events in the southeast to try and sell RDL, and we find a perception of some areas of the community can be feel a little excluded, even our target demographic in the trans group, especially trans, non-binary, and certainly in the last 18 months, increasingly in the BAME population. And I believe that if people support our values, that no one should feel excluded or unwelcome at ODL. I want to ensure that our perception of ODL and our internal structures are there to support everyone in the community who should have access to our sport. For member engagement, I'm sure many of you have already seen that we've been publishing messages on social media and Telegram for when your events go live or when spaces become available. That's something I've built off my own back for ODL. Also the interactive Marvin Telegram bot, leader Google Calendar planners for draft events, and trialing event channels for larger events, a big screen camp, regional member forums, and essentially trying to encourage better conversations within the members and for people to interact at different levels within a region and between the leaders and the board. So I want to try and make sure we can build on these platforms that I've built to get better engagement at all levels within ODL. Now, the less fun bit, but what be more critical, is actually operational control and governance. I've been involved in this quite a bit, unseen by the membership, but a lot of work behind the scenes. So historically, we've only had a very high level view of the organisation. So I've been working to provide detailed insight over the data we have and understand how you, the members, actually use the group. We're building systems to make sure we meet our legal and insurance obligations, which you might have seen through participation statements and volunteer agreements, and making sure that the events we run are within the rule set and make sure everyone is protected. Also provide us tools for streamlining office processes to reduce costs and errors, and helped us support run events during COVID, like you might have seen the QR codes that run through events, and various tools to help the office manage all the bulk postponements, etc., to help everything run smoothly as best we can through the pandemic. So although I am in an advisor role, I do want to bring my in-depth knowledge of the systems, our data and finances to the board to ensure that strategic decisions are based on valid and accurate data. So one of the main aims of that in the first year, my main focus will be financial viability and stability of the organisation. I've already been working with Niels and Matt on this already, and have built an event and organisation level income and expenditure tool. So we can now see for historic events and current events, what's making money, what isn't, where we're losing money, if it's through discounts or just from lack of income or missing incorrect pricing. I want to try and work with Niels to make sure we develop a new sound pricing policy going forward so we can support the paid events, but also ensure we reduce the burden on the general membership for events which don't make money, and make sure to take a balanced view of how we manage that financial risk. Of course, I want to ensure that we make events open to all, so make sure we make more effective use of the foundation to give people access to events where we can, and just make sure everyone gets the best access to Outdoor Lads that they can.
David, ask you to wrap this up quite quickly, if that's all right now, please.
Yep, that was where I was finishing.
Thank you. Brilliant, superb. So can we have the voting panel up, please, Simon? So
It's live.
you can vote for, against, or abstain. You may place your votes. Still got a few more to vote, if that's all right. Must be a couple more. Okay, it seems to stabilise. Thank you very much. So write the figures down, it's easier. So in the meeting, we've got 83 for, and by proxy, 17 for. Against, we have 17 in the meeting and 3 by proxy, and abstain, 15 in the meeting and 3 by proxy. So congratulations, Dave, and welcome to the board. Thank you very much, everybody. And if I just hand over then back to, that's okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Great, thank you everybody, and a big welcome to Joey, Dave, Niels, and again welcome back to Danny. So again, thank you everyone, and yeah, congratulations on being invited, being elected to the board. So thank you everyone. Right, well, that actually now concludes the formal business of the meeting. And now we move into the year in review and the reflections. So thank you everybody for getting us through our business and getting all the official bits and pieces done. So we then kick off then with our year in review. And I think given where we are as an organisation and indeed the world and the country at this moment, we can't escape the big topic at the moment, which of course is ODL and the global pandemic. So we're all, I think, aware of, some of the challenges that ODL kind of faced over the last period. Looking back from the autumn of 2020 through to the spring, ODL found itself in a tricky position where a constantly changing landscape of tiers, what was in, what was out, actually made doing events unbelievably difficult, up until a point, as I said, up until Boxing Day, where the events programme was entirely suspended. And I think a huge amount of credit needs to be given to our leaders, our regional coordinators, and to the office team who spent huge amounts of time changing web pages, updating guidance. Every time we wrote a guidance document for leaders, suddenly everything changed, and quite literally 24 hours we were having to pull events very quickly. So from the lockdown at Christmas time, we moved our staff team onto the furlough scheme to an extent. I think at one point in the late part of the winter, we had around sort of 7 hours of staff time a week in the office. So we kind of really put the organisation on freeze straight after the lockdown going into January, February time. So what steps did the board take in terms of how did we protect the organisation, the things that we did to make sure? I think it's fair to say come the autumn of last year, as Niels mentioned, our projections and the worst case scenarios of ODL did look worrying, and there were a few sleepless nights, I think, for myself and for a number of us around what was the future of ODL going to be. So a number of sort of steps that were taken in terms of our finances. We were able to get a rent freeze of our office in Manchester, which made a huge difference, as our staff at that point weren't coming in, mostly working from home. From December to indeed currently now at the end of the furlough scheme, we have been using the, as the organisation still isn't back up full capacity yet, the government furlough scheme. So you would have seen out of offices from a number of members, a number of the team. And we've been kind of slowly phasing our staff team back from the spring through to now. We cut our website investment budget. So one of the things that Outdoor Lads historically had paid for was a number of investment days to update, to bring changes back into the website, but it was deemed at that moment that could be an expenditure and that could be cut. So a combination of these actions that we took in the autumn, though painful and indeed not ideal for the organisation, in the medium to long term have protected our financial situation and has given us the real kind of bounce to be able to move forward. And I think actually the actions that the board took, I think were right and correct at that moment. So looking back then, as I mentioned, as ODL is now coming out the other side of the pandemic, what are kind of the reflections and what are the kind of some of the key learning points as us as an organisation in terms of the pandemic? Membership income, donations and grants kept ODL afloat for the last 12 to 18 months. For those that joined at the birthday party, I would have talked about the importance of our members and the value of you guys bring to the organisation. If it wasn't for the members continuously paying their membership fees and generously donating to the charity, we would have been in a fundamentally worse and even more dire position. It continuously amazed me the number of people that remained and the number of income that we got. So a key takeaway, I think, from the last 18 months is how just important our membership are. And thank you for, I think, the bottom of my heart that you kept us going during this period. We implemented our new insurance arrangements in the early part of the spring. That was a particular challenge as we maybe, when the announcement came from the government that Outdoor Lads would be back, we didn't maybe expect to have to move as quick as we did. And a big thank you to those that helped get that off the ground. The demand for the day events continues to be high, and I think that is something that is quite important when we're thinking about our event planning going forward. Actually, the demand and the real drive for the individual paid events has really been quite high, maybe higher than we thought it would be. And I think that is a really key thinking point for the next 12 to 18 months around making sure that we don't forget about day walks, climbs, cycles when we're planning for the events going forward. We weren't able to deliver probably as much as we would have liked to have done in terms of all the other niceties, the must-haves, the could-haves as us as an organisation. I think one of the spotlight that has really shone on ODL as a result of the pandemic is we are very reliant on often a very small number of volunteers to really drive ideas, policies, initiatives, etc., etc. With the staff being on furlough, we were really able to deliver kind of only the real basics of getting ODL back off the ground. And I think it has really shone a spotlight on we really do need volunteers and people who are willing to put themselves forward to actually say, yeah, I'd be willing to do X, I'd be willing to do Y. And maybe as an organisation, we haven't been as good at asking for help as we should have done. So I think those would be my I think the organisation's reflections on how we did during the pandemic. So the next slide, I'm actually going to hand over to Gavin, who's going to talk about some of the kind of the staying more that was quite a fundamental aspect of our programme. So Gavin, if I can hand over, and if you could reasonably swiftly take through your reflections on our staying more events and what the future holds for those.
Thanks, Matt. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you indeed.
Fabulous. So yeah, during lockdown, our members led over 600 events and they're still happening. So it was absolutely fantastic. Outdoor Lads magic, absolutely in the spirit of everything that we stand for. We saw a variety of things, quizzes, talks, excuse me, lunchtime huddles, some professional acts as well, really just trying to get in all the variety we could, but really just helping our members to stay together. Our membership survey said 38% of members felt that Outdoor Lads had helped them during lockdown, and you can read some of those quotes for yourself, and just really humbled by some of the stuff that people are putting live in the chat as well, just really reflecting on just how much support they got from staying more. Okay. Far too many people to mention, of course, but there were some real stars that just seemed week on week to keep coming out with fantastic stuff. So just a shout out really to Pete, Mike, James Caudry, Will Alloway, Andy Rennell, Aaron Wilson, Paul and Nick as well. Just really, the backbone of everything that was going on there, week in, week out, always coming up with some fantastic stuff. So just thank you so much. Where do we go in the future? Well, members said that they would like to see Staying More continue into the winter. Winter is coming, as they say. So let's sort of take all the really good stuff that we learned about Staying More, and yeah, let's keep going with things as much as we want. You know, it's whatever people are going to step forward and volunteer to do, whatever you want to lead, whatever your ideas are. If you need a hand with it, just contact me. My email's there. I've got a meeting organised on Thursday.
Gavin, I think you've muted yourself inadvertently.
How strange for me to do that. I've just popped, I was just saying, I've just pasted a link to a meeting on Thursday at 7 o'clock. So if anyone's interested in coming along, pitch some ideas for winter programme of events. I've got a few bits and pieces lined up already, and I've got some of our members who have already stepped up to say that they would like to do some quizzes and so forth. So yeah, just all and more the merrier really. So please do step up and volunteer. We would be very grateful and you would be very welcome.
Now that's me muted. Yeah, no, thank you, Gavin. Just I think to reiterate, for members who may be joining the call this evening and thinking, oh, I've got an idea for a Staying More event. You don't have to be a leader to run a Staying More event. So if you're thinking, oh, actually, yeah, I could do a quiz, or yeah, I could do a talk, or I'd be happy to host something over the winter months, please do, and please get in contact with Gavin, and he would absolutely love to hear you. And again, we can do all the logistics behind the scenes and get your event live. Great. Thanks, Gavin. Okay, so that's kind of looking slightly back at the past over sort of the long-term impact, but we now sort of turn our attention more to the present. So back in sort of late February, March time, just around the government announcement around the tier system, the board set out 3 key objectives that we would like to work on for the remainder of 2021. Relaunch our event programme, run some big events that generate specific income generating activities, and grow and re-engage the membership for the around 200 people that didn't renew their membership, to either encourage them back or to get new members to join the organisation. So those were kind of the 3 organisational objectives that we set out to achieve for the remainder of 2021. So looking back at kind of what we did and what our roadmap was at that particular time, you can see that ODL were able to kind of launch our sort of mini micro events back from March, and we were quite lucky that we were able to get the sporting exemption to be able to run larger groups. And as the remainder of the year went along, we were able to reintroduce indoor climbing events, and then back onto camping, hostels, and then successfully be able to relaunch our big event programme in the summer of this year. So I'm going to hand over to Liam, our programme manager, who's going to talk a little bit about essentially how we've done performance-wise from that 29th of March to where we are today. Liam, I think you're muted.
Of course. Thanks, Matt. So where we are currently, so since restrictions eased slightly in March and then again in May and June, Outdoor Lads has restarted, and I think it's done really pretty well actually. We've had almost 500 campers so far on our events, which is a great number to see. We have had, as mentioned previously, 2 big events in August, which meant August was jam-packed but a whole lot of fun. So we had our biggest ever big summer camp at the August Bank Holiday weekend, 250 people down there in Worthing. Brilliant event and just amazing to see everybody back, enjoying themselves, catching up with people, making new friends. It was just something we've all really, really missed. And it was fantastic to be there. The big 15th birthday, which we had in the Peak District first weekend in August, was a different type of event for us really. No disco, but that just meant people were more chatting. We had board games evenings, and it was a really nice event. The first one we had with, you know, reasonably large numbers, options for hostels and camping there. Just a lot of fun. And again, just the main thing I took away was just lovely to see people get and enjoying each other's company once again. And I think with both events, the fact that we did the started the scanning in for COVID passports at the beginning was appreciated by a lot of people. It gave confidence to people, I think, that they could be at the event and interact with others without having to be too concerned about COVID. And well, I can say this now because enough time has passed, such where there hasn't been any outbreaks as a result of those 2 events. So that's fantastic. Our day events are the core of Outdoor Lads, really. And this is where the real success is, I guess. Since restrictions changed in March, we have had 322 day walks across all varieties, which is an amazing number. 100 climbing events and 71 cycling events since lockdown eased in March. And the thing about Outdoor Lads is that's 322 day walks put on by a volunteer leader, 100 climbs by a volunteer leader, 71 cycles by a volunteer leader. Somebody's organised that event, turned up on the day, done all the admin required, and that's a fantastic volunteer effort. So again, I just want to say thank you to the leaders for all their efforts in putting those events on, but also thanks to the members, because if there was no members turning up to events, then the events wouldn't happen. So it's just brilliant that people are starting to get out more again, and are obviously feeling a bit more confident than they perhaps were about doing so. So again, it's a bit more Outdoor Lads magic for you there, isn't there? Thank you. The next slide, please, Matt. So we've also restarted our hostel and camping events. Start off with camping events first, because they are outside, and we've held 48 so far. A load of camping this year. We sort of realised that camping was going to be the slightly safer and probably the event type where people would have more confidence. And so lots of camping going on this year, which is great to see. I've done a few myself, had a brilliant weekend just gone in Yorkshire Dales, and it's just so good to be able to reconnect with people again. The hostel events are subject to the same COVID procedure that we had big events. So on arrival, people's COVID passes are scanned, so people have got confidence that people have had 2 vaccinations or have antibodies to the virus, and again, that gives us all a lot of confidence. All these events kind of went ahead at high capacity in the spring and summer. I think we're all so keen to get back at it again that there was lots of booking going on. We first put those first 10 or 12 events live one afternoon. I literally sat there with my mouth open, couldn't believe the amount of bookings that were just coming in out of nowhere. And some events sold out completely in sort of 45 minutes, which just gives you a flavour of the pent-up demand that was there. But I think now that we're getting more used to it again, our autumn-winter programme is perhaps feeling slightly less well, maybe because people have got other things on other than just Outdoor Lads and catching up with other friends and family as well. Whilst that's totally understandable, it is a little bit of a concern to us, as Niels was talking about earlier, because we have to pay for those hostels, and we really could do with those filling up a little bit better. So to that extent, I have invited our North West and North Wales regional coordinator, Mark House, just to talk a little bit about the hostel experience and some of the great weekends we have coming up. So Mark, can I hand over to you, please? Matt, you need to start that slide again in a minute when Mark is on the call, if that's all right.
Mark, you are now a panellist. You should be able to speak and show us your lovely face.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Mark. I'm one of the Outdoor Lads regional coordinators with responsibility for North Wales and North West of England. And as Liam said, he's just asked me to take you through some of the upcoming weekend events in the autumn and winter programme in the hope of piquing your interest. Niels mentioned earlier on the importance of filling our autumn events. They are important to us financially, but also they're important to us as members of Outdoor Lads. I think you've heard quite a bit about Outdoor Lads magic this evening, and I think most members would probably agree that our weekend events, particularly our hostel events, are the opportunity to really experience that magic in its clearest and most exciting form. Many of you would have been on our hostel events before, but some of you might not have been, or it might have been some time ago since you attended. These are generally 2 nights, sometimes longer weekend events in hostels all over the UK, usually in wonderful and exciting locations where groups of anywhere between 12 and 100 members live together for the weekend, cook together, clean together, plan events together, have adventures together, and debrief together over games and drinks and everything else. As I said, in these most awesome locations. And was reflecting earlier on the fact that the likes of the YHA and the National Trust and other hostel owners have really lucked out on some of their real estate, because the hostels that we go to are so often in absolutely stunning and beautiful locations up in the mountains or on the coast. And with that in mind, that takes me to the first item on my list of upcoming hostels to bring your attention to. And as I go through these, you'll see a series of slides on the screen with images from some of these hostels, and the QR code on the screen will take you to a page on the Outdoor Lads website where you can sign up to all of these hostels, or some of them at least, all of them if you like, if you're feeling adventurous. So the first on the list is literally in a few days' time, on the 24th of September, and it's a hostel up here in North Wales in the Conwy Valley. It's the Conwy Valley Hostel event at YHA Rowan. It's being led by the absolute dream team of Marty and Jason, who will look after you in terms of hosting and food in the kitchen and keeping you adventurous and safe up on the hills. That hostel is located right up on the edge of the valley with a little front garden where you can enjoy your breakfast, beautiful views over the Conwy Valley. And from the back garden, you can walk straight onto the Cynedai mountain range, where you've got mountains to one side and the coast to the other side. It's a beautiful little hostel. You'll be well looked after by Marty and Jason. And if you're free next weekend, I'd highly recommend that you sign up to that. Next on the list, on the 1st of October, unusually for this time of year, is a camping event. And it's a great opportunity. It's our mountain navigation training weekend, being led by 4 of our most experienced mountain leaders in the Lake District, Luke, Dan, Rob and Peter. They're leading a camp right on the banks of Lake Windermere. And while this is not just for leaders, it's a great opportunity for existing leaders to go and practice their navigation skills, to learn new skills and to upskill. But the event's not just open to leaders. Anyone's welcome to go along who might have an interest in navigation or who's interested in becoming a leader at some point. And Luke, Dan, Rob and Peter will teach you a load of stuff, put you through your paces, all in an awesome location right on the banks of Lake Windermere. On the 15th of October, we've got one of our coastal hostels, the Pembrokeshire Peninsula weekend, being led by Damo. Someone's just asked when the training event is. Sorry, 1st of October. That's the camp, the 1st of October. So the next one on the list was, the Pembrokeshire Peninsula weekend, 15th of October, led by Damo. Damo particularly enjoys leading coastal hostels, usually in awesome locations. He's famous for it. He's also famous for the little additions that he brings to hostels. And on this occasion, I understand that gin tasting is planned. All details are on the page. I've not been there myself, but I've seen the pictures. It looks amazing. And someone has mentioned in the event's comments that this is a stunning location. So that's a first-hand review of that particular hostel. 22nd of October is one of our Scottish events. And this is a 3-night event. A lot of people find that traveling up to Scotland is a long way. And now and again, we have 3 nights up in Scotland to make the journey more worthwhile. And this is one of those. You will be trading luxury for location on this occasion, because this is a pretty basic mountain hut. But that's just what you want when you're up in the West Highlands of Scotland. And you'll be well looked after by Alan. You're sure to have a proper adventure up there in the wilds of Scotland. On that 3-nighter, that's the 22nd of October. Then the 5th of November, we've got the Southwest's equivalent of the wilderness, which is Dartmoor, not somewhere I've been myself, but I'd love to go and explore a bit more. But there's a remote and atmospheric hostel taking place down there in Dartmoor. That's the 5th of November. And as we move towards the end of November and then into December, we're into the Outdoor Lads Christmas program. We have a series of Christmas hostels every year, varying sizes, something to suit everybody's tastes. The Big North Christmas hostel is already full, but there's plenty of spaces on the remaining hostels. At the end of November, that's the 26th of November, there's Christmas in the Cairngorms, which is the Scottish Christmas event, and the Scottish team are well known for putting on an amazing party. That's another 3-nighter, making the journey up to Scotland even more worthwhile. And then on the 10th of December, it's the smallest of our Christmas hostels in the Peak District. That's being led by Liam and Will. And of course, the hostel leaders instigate the meals on these hostels, and as much as they ask for volunteers to assist them, it's very much down to the leaders to come up with the menu for these things. And I have it on good authority that we'll be doing something interesting with coconuts and palms out at that hostel. So if that sounds exciting to you, then make your way over to the Peak District on the 10th of December. Also that same weekend is the Big South Christmas. So if you're up for more of a party, accessible from the southeast and the southwest in Wiltshire is our hostel in Devizes, with the possibility of walking at Stonehenge. If you've not been there before, you fancy doing that, followed by a Christmas dinner, then the Big South Christmas is for you. And then finally, over the Christmas period itself, we have the Outdoor Lads Family Christmas, which has been taking place over the last few years. Been very popular for those people that aren't able or don't want to spend time perhaps with their family, or if got nothing else to do at Christmas. They've found an opportunity to spend it with their Outdoor Lads family. They've been hugely popular, and you'll be well looked after for 4 nights in the Wye Valley during the Christmas period. That brings us to the end of the year, but with a little nugget of excitement for the beginning of 2022. Those of you will be familiar with our annual winter camp, which takes place in February each year. That will be back next year on the 4th of February at an exciting new location with an exciting new format, and that will be going live in the next week or so. So look out for that. So QR code on the screen takes you to all of these events. Any questions about any of them, if you're not sure if they're for you, or if you're a bit uncertain about what will happen on a hostel weekend, you're always welcome to email one of the regional coordinators, or better still, the event leader, because they will be able to talk enthusiastically and knowledgeably about their events. Yeah, look forward to seeing you on some of our hostel events very soon.
Great, super. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for preparing all that stuff. But yeah, please do, guys, have a look on the hostel page for those new members, or indeed for existing members that want to have a little look at our programme. Liam, before we move on to the next section, I don't suppose we've had any immediate questions that have come up in the last couple of slides that we need to answer?
We've had the question about Northern Ireland and what we could do with Northern Ireland, given there's not many events there. But I've offered a chat with the person that's proposing that, which could be very interesting.
Absolutely.
Are there any events postponed from last year still to go ahead next year other than Big Spring Camp? Yes, there are a handful. Off the top of my head, it's 4 or so, not many. And what was the other one? I've lost it again now. There was another one somewhere.
That's all right, Liam, not to, but
okay.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Right then, gents, well, again, thank you to everyone, to Gavin, Liam, and indeed Mark, who have taken us through that last section. So, gentlemen, we are running a little bit behind time this evening, and we did have a 5-minute break planned in. I think it's probably preferable for everybody that we try to finish on time. If you do need to run off to the toilet, you can always, your cameras aren't on, so if you need to go, you can take us wherever you need to go. But I think we will crack on to the next section then. So Liam and Danny have already kind of covered a lot of this stuff this evening, but obviously this year we were unable to run our pinnacle event of the year, which is Spring Camp. So for those that were booked on to Spring Camp 2020, your place carried over to Spring Camp this year, and we will be running Spring Camp next year. Slightly different compared to previous years, because with the Queen's Jubilee, I think it is, Spring Camp will run Thursday and Friday, which are the 2 bank holidays, Saturday, and then go home Sunday. I hope I've got that right, Liam. So that's the kind of the new format for Spring Camp, just for next year, because it is, I think, the Queen's Jubilee year. There are, I believe, just under 100 spaces left. So if you haven't signed up, I would get on it quickly, because they will go before too long. As mentioned, we haven't been running a Halloween this year due to a change in venue, but we are now actively on the hunt for a Halloween for the future. So if you do have any suggestions, Danny McComb will be your man. If you do have any suggestions, please do email them in. But yeah, we hope to see as many of you as possible at Spring Camp next year, which will be an epic event. I promise you that. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you next year. So that's kind of, we've talked about the past of what Outdoor Lads has been for the last couple of years. We've looked at how we've done so far and what's kind of coming up in the near immediate future. And I'm now actually going to hand over to Danny Ballantyne, who's going to talk to us about what Outdoor Lads plans are in terms of setting out our strategy and direction for the next kind of medium to long term. So Danny, can I hand over to you for the next section, please?
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Fab, next slide, please. Okie dokie. Why do we need a strategy? We've spoken a lot this evening in terms of different ideas, what we want to achieve through the organisation. A lot of people come into the organisation with lots of ideas, what we need to do to develop and change. Why do we need a strategy? All the reasons on the screen will give you an idea for that, but actually it's about shaping the future of this organisation. We are a self-funded charity. We don't have, we're not lucky enough to be externally funded. Everything we do is funded by our members, and that foundation of our membership and our volunteers is what we have to build upon. So as a membership, it is up to us and you guys to help shape the future of this organisation. Next slide, please, Matt. What do we want to do? So how do we create this strategy? So what we're going to do, or my suggestion is to the rest of the board and the organisation, we adopt, this is called a Cascade Approach, and it's used for successful business development, and it's where we look at all aspects of this organisation and bring it together into one fluid strategy. You've heard things mentioned tonight, such as looking at our equality and diversity, becoming more financially independent, making sure that we have a financial model that works and is sustainable. Do we need to start looking at other LGBTQI partners? It's all of these things that we need to bring together in one opportunity to understand how Outdoor Lads needs to move in the future. And it's up to the membership to help that happen. Next slide, please, Matt. What do we want? One thing that Joey said, who's just joined the board, is how do we get involved? And this is one thing that we are notoriously quite bad at as a board, is actually getting people involved in a way that works for everybody. If you have your phone on you now, if you scan the QR code in the corner of the screen, it will take you to one of a couple of events that we're going to run. And this event, we're going to call it a discovery session or a listening session. What this basically is going to be led by one of the board members to say, let's talk about all the different opportunities within the organisation that we can optimise. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We know what Outdoor Lads is good at. We're great at running events. We're great at making people feel, you know, that warm, fuzzy feeling. We know what our bread and butter is. But actually, how do we take it to that next step? How do we remain competitive and how do we grow? And that is dependent on the feedback from our members. The one thing I will say, this is not an opportunity for people to whinge. People are great at whinging and really bad at being creative and actually giving a solution to the problem that they're talking about. We need creative, positive people who are going to explain what the problem is, but actually, here's a solution, here's what we can do about it. And we've said all the way through this, we are a member-led organisation. We have 3 paid members of staff whose difficult job is to manage the best part of 1,500 active members. We need to help them and say, actually, here's the shape that we're going to, here's what we're going to do next, and we need you guys for doing it. So if you want to help, if you're up for giving us a bit of a boost and some ideas, scan the QR code in the corner of the screen and we'll see you on one of the discovery sessions soon. Thank you.
Super, thank you, Danny. So yeah, this is a really exciting opportunity for members of the organisation to have their say and get involved in where do you think the priorities of the organisation should sit. We've already, as mentioned earlier, have this fantastic £106,000 investment. Now, I'm not saying that Danny's going to create a bidding system where someone can ask for a rope for 50 quid, etc., but these conversations around where do the organisation's going will help us determine where best we think we should put the organisation. Leaders, coordinators on the call, if you think that ODI needs to be pumping a bucket of cash into leader training and development, it's your time to kind of make that argument and get involved in this process. So this is really exciting, and I think this is going to be a great opportunity for members to get involved in where ODI is going in the future. So I'm sure you can find Danny or myself or Niels' email address. So I'll just leave the QR code there for just a couple of seconds if people do want to scan it and then hopefully get as part of the sessions. So thank you, Danny, again. Would strongly invite members to come along to these. So we're now going to move on as we're coming to kind of more towards the end of our agenda now in terms of where we're at. So thinking about what I talked about right at the beginning of the meeting, which is celebrating what we've achieved, is I'm going to hand back to Danny, who's going to give us a very, very, very brief overview on just in terms of our reflections and how we're doing with our one of the most important people of the organisation is our leaders. So Danny, back over to you, please.
So thank you. Okie dokie. Why do we lead? Big question. I think before we get to that one, I think what's important is we take one step back from it. Why did we join? Every single person on this call now and who is part of Outdoor Lads is here by choice. It's not mandatory. It's not an obligation. Everybody's here because they want to be. That's one of the biggest things that we have here. Every single person has a backstory. Everybody has a justification for why you turned up to your first event. Your first event, you probably don't remember exactly where it was or who was on it, but I bet every single person in this room remembers how it made them feel. As humans, that's what we react to. We're emotionally intelligent animals. That's the things that we remember. And that's the thing that we talk about, the Outdoor Lads magic, that sense of community, that sense of belonging and that family. That is the reason most people here become leaders. If you've had that feeling, you want to share it with as many people as you can. You want to share it, you want to be engulfed by it, and you want to let other people have that chance that you have. And that's why we always need more people to share that magic. Next slide, please, Matt. Admittedly, the last year has been incredibly difficult. From the normal program of events that we normally lead, we've been able to do a percentage of which. But Gavin's covered earlier in the slide deck that we reacted as quickly as we could. All the leaders that we've had, we'd never done stay in more events, but overnight we went from becoming an outdoor charity to seeing what can we do. Let's do stay in more events. And our leaders are the people that responded. Other, the people on the board, we managed to look at cost saving exercises, but to maintain our membership, it was you guys as members and leaders that reacted and made that happen. The stats we have on the screen now are normally slightly more positive, but I think we still need to revel in the fact that we still have, a percentage more leaders from 2020 to this year. Admittedly, a majority of those are staying more and social event leaders, which is fantastic. People who'd never led an event before, then became a social leader, staying more leader, and now you can progress through the ranks of that, which is fantastic. We currently have 49 leader applications submitted. So there's 49 people who are waiting to have assessments and sign off from people around the UK. So we're working together with the regional coordinators and organisers to make sure that if you have put that application in, you're going to have some time with an appropriate person to get you signed off. If you do have any questions about being a leader, speak to your regional coordinators or organisers, or even send me a message and we can all point you in the right direction. One thing that we can do as well, Matt's already mentioned it, with an injection of £106,000, we obviously are going to see that return in a leader training and development budget. And every normal year, as I'll call it, we make KPIs and we make promises. This year, I don't think it's appropriate to make any, apart from we adopt a member and leader focused approach to upskilling and training. Last year was incredibly difficult. If we say we should have led X amount of events, it'll just be negative because we haven't been able to do it. But the only thing I want to promise for this year moving forward is that we put leaders at the heart of every decision we make. Matt and Niels have already alluded to the fact that we're going to do a lot of engagement events and a lot of understanding where is best spent with this money. Do we get, different training partners? Do we look at trying to re-engage with new exciting activities? And a lot of this feeds back into the strategy approach that we've looked at as well. If there's new events that people want to try, let's have a chat about it. Let's see what we can do. That's the exciting approach that we want to do. If we have another normal year and everything goes to plan, we can start to look at more tangible KPIs that we can deliver. But at this moment in time, let's just have a human-focused approach and not a KPI. That'll be much better. Matt, next slide, please.
I think, Danny, we are probably, I think we're just prior to the leader award. So I think we're coming to the end of that section now. So what I'll do, and again, no problem. Thank you, Danny, for that. So what we'll probably do is just before we kind of get to arguably the best section of the evening, which is about the leaders and awards, I will pause just to see if we've got any questions on anything that Danny just talked about in terms of strategy, or anything in terms of the leader, where we're at and some of our ideas for the future. So Liam, can I just ask if we've got any questions from the floor?
It's one that's just come in. Do we make use of members' day jobs and skills to help in training and leadership?
I can take that one if you like, Liam. So,
yeah, thanks,
I mean, I have first-hand experience of that one, Kevin, and it's a very, very good question. So, obviously, usually we have a fairly standardised, journey to leadership here at Outdoor Lads. But if someone has prior skills from something that they do on the outside, for example, they might be a D&V leader in a school, or they might have done mountain skills in an educational capacity. I'm very happy to look at those capacities and then see if we can accelerate someone through that process based on that skill.
Thanks very much.
I think to build upon Neil's point, if people have those skills to offer, we want to know about it. But you have to, with a membership this big, we can't approach every single person. So if you need an avenue into the organisation to offer help, email any of the trustees and we can all work together with this collaborative approach and make things happen. That'd be fab.
Super, thank you. Any other questions, Liam, on the last section?
Well, there's one about the foundation, which Dan is currently answering. So basically, do you want to do this, Dan? It looks like the foundation has allocated no funds in the last year, and that's correct because of the pandemic, really. There's been no requests. And what plans are in place for the funds that are restricted for the foundation currently and into the next year? Dan? Where he's gone? Okay,
we don't have Dan. That's fine. So I'll do my best to answer it. So yeah, Dylan was right. In the last 12 months, we haven't had any applications for things, but that isn't to say that moving forward in the next 12 months, if members want to make use of that as kind of finances and as the event program picks up, we would absolutely encourage them to do so. If there are any individuals in the organisation who have a background, in grants and donations and want to help, support this kind of things going forward, please do put yourself forward. As I mentioned before, we need people to kind of drive ideas and things forward. So if that is something that is of interest and you think, actually, yeah, I've got a background working in grants and donations and charitable giving, put yourself forward. You'd be surprised actually that we might snap you up on that offer.
Dan's just texted me and said actually his computer's just frozen at that point, so apologies for that IT issue there.
Oh, not to worry. All right then, gents. So I think we will stop there then. So in terms of our more sort of formal agenda, we've now gone through the main bit of the business. We've done our year in review, the past, the present, the future. And we've talked about strategy and our leaders. I think now we actually come to argue what I think is the best bit of the agenda this evening, is where we do our leader awards. So again, I'm going to hand back over to Danny, who's going to take us through the leader award. So Danny, back over to you, please.
Thank you. You'll be sick of the side to me in 5 minutes. Next slide, please. So, leader awards. As Matt said, this is the most exciting part of the agenda, which is brilliant. But I think what we need to do as well is remember that the rest of the organisation, individuals that volunteer their time to Outdoor Lads, everybody's alluded to the fact that we all have day jobs, we all have skill sets, and we're all very busy people. We have a number of people across the UK that support our paid staff team in running the event. So we've got regional coordinators, organisers, event leaders, big event volunteers. We have working groups on the board who are looking at our strategies. And for all of these people, we owe them a huge thank you. It's all of these people that don't get the recognition throughout the year for all of the work that they do. But I think on behalf of the board and the rest of the organisation, I'd like to say a massive thank you to everybody who has supported us over the last 12 months, especially in reacting as quickly as we have done to the situation, that is COVID-19. So on behalf of everyone else, I'd like to say a massive thank you to everybody. Okie dokie, Liam, next slide for you, please.
So the next slide is the people that have been nominated this year for our Leader Awards. A lot of people here. It's a lot of people and very many more than we normally have at this point. So I just wanted to say really that it's fantastic to see, one, that people are being engaged in recognising the work that our leaders are doing and making the effort to put their names forward for this award. But also I'm slightly blown away by the amounts of people who, you know, are considered up for this award. And it's just brilliant to see the level of engagement and involvement that all these people have. I mean, unfortunately, given time constraints, we can't actually go into all the nice things that are said about these people that are on this slide now. But what I can say is you've all done a really amazing job, and thanks for all your support and everything you do for Outdoor Lads. Yeah, and thanks from our members as well. So it's brilliant.
I think what's paramount, to build upon what Liam said there, is that all of the names that appeared on this screen haven't been nominated by the board. This is by members. So it's members that have recognised these individuals for the work that they've done. So massive well done to the people on the screen. As always, though, we do have some standout people from the last 12 months. Liam, next slide, please.
We might be doing that.
Oh,
yeah.
Matt, even, sorry.
Are we good to go for the first award, Liam?
Yep, go.
Okay, and the first award goes to...
I'm actually going to do Richard and Michael Amat at the same time, if that's all right, because people might not be aware who are on the call tonight. But the Outdoor Lads podcast that we've all heard over the last 12 months has been written, produced and spoken by our very own Mr. Richard Laverick and Michael Amat. And I think from a personal perspective, I'd like to say a massive thank you for what you guys have done. This has been nothing to do with the staff team, with the board. These guys have gone off on their own and they produced this podcast that kept many of us on our solo 2-hour limited walks a day, kept us occupied. So guys, you've done an absolutely sterling job, and I think I'll speak on behalf of everybody when I say when's the next one due out. So Michael and Richard, thank you so much. You've done a fantastic job this year.
Thank you, Jen.
Oh, and Dan Burns has just dropped a link into the chat. If you've not heard the podcast before, click on the link in the chat and you'll be able to hear it. Okay, next slide, please, Liam. Mr. Richard Overton. The feedback for Richard this year has been absolutely overwhelming. So Rich, I think the feedback speaks for itself. A huge thank you for all the new member recruitment that you've done. And actually more than anything else is putting the new members at ease that you've introduced into the organisation. So Rich, I think you are on the call, but on behalf of everybody that you've introduced this year, you've done an absolutely sterling job. Thank you so much. And next slide, please. So this is my wild card, I'm going to call it. So Mr. Dan Blackwell. If people who know Mr. Blackwell, he's part of the history of Outdoor Lads, and Dan is renowned for putting the outdoors into Outdoor Lads. You bring a fierce drive and determination to run great events throughout the country, which are very, very well received by many. Let's get you out of the fringe groups and let's put your big events back together and let's get them more on the radar. Dan, you do an absolutely sterling job again, and the member feedback speaks for itself. You've been highly commended by so many people this year. And if members haven't seen some of these events that are on, Dan works with Richard and a few other leaders to run multi-activity weekends up in Langdale. So if you look in the past events of ODL, you'll see the events that are run there. Book onto one of Dan's events and you won't regret it. So Dan, thank you so much. Next one, Gavin Blackman. So Gavin, this recommendation has come not only from the members, but actually from your regional coordinators. And in their words, you are the cornerstone of the walking events in the Southeast. Without you, I don't think there would be any walks. There'll be less than 10% of the walks that are made up of the Southeast. So Gavin, thank you so much from your regional coordinators and from the rest of the board. You've done an absolutely brilliant job. Thank you so much. Next one, Rob Mitchell. Rob, who, as most people who are very keen on mountain walks will probably know, is probably more comfortable sleeping in a bivvy bag on top of a mountain than he is in his own bed. Rob is one of the nicest, most genuine guys you'll ever meet. If you've never done a mountain walk before and you want to get into it, go on a walk with Rob. Rob is an absolutely fantastic asset to Outdoor Lads. If you've never done anything before, he's your man to go to. Look for Rob's events around the UK, search for him as a leader, and you can see the events that he's on. Always welcome him. It says it all. Rob, amazing. Thank you so much. Final two we're down to Andrew Jackson. So your feedback, Andy, is actually quite interesting. So from the member survey and emails from the members, you've been described as the most sociable, friendly and welcoming leader we have. So that on its own speaks absolute volumes. Again, Outdoor Lads are all about sharing that magic, and you've done an absolutely fantastic job of that this year. And people who are new to the organisation and need introducing to other members, you're the man to go to. Again, the feedback speaks volumes, and it doesn't need me to say it. Thank you. Final thank you. Will, you have been mentioned previously in the Stay In More event from Gavin, but actually I think you are due more than an award tonight, because I think you've been the backbone of the Stay In More events. When we first transitioned from Outdoor Lads to doing the Indoor Lads events, which was interesting, Will, you put in a huge amount of effort, from games nights, cocktail making, quizzes, movie nights. Will, you were an absolute saviour to a lot of people in Outdoor Lads. I think you are probably the sole reason that a lot of people have stayed a member of Outdoor Lads. Again, the feedback has been absolutely fantastic. So you've done an absolutely brilliant job. Thank you so much. I think that brings us to the end of the Leader Awards. And one thing I just want to note here, again, we're quite good at complaining when things don't go right, but let's get even better at telling everybody when things go well. When you receive that email at the end of your event, take that 5 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever it takes you, just to say, this is what the leader was like, this is how good it was, this is how it made me feel. It's that feedback that we need to shout about to get other people involved in this organisation. We're a member-led organisation. We need to keep pushing for it. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody.
Great, thank you, Danny. And again, a massive well done to all of our leaders who received a nomination, and for those who got an award for this year. But again, to all of our leaders who put themselves forward, who made an event page. If you are sat on the edge thinking, I'm not sure if being a leader is for me, honestly, take the plunge, and it will be one of the best things that you have done. So again, a massive thank you to all of our leaders for their continued hard work, dedication, enthusiasm over the last 12 months. You have kept us going, so thank you so much. Right, gents, we are at the end of the awards. A couple more slides to go before we conclude this evening. So not only, as we talked about, we want to say thank you to our amazing leaders for they've worked. I'm now going to hand over to Simon, who's going to give, and Simon and Stephen, who are going to give a big thank you to all of our members. So Simon, if I can hand over to you, please.
Yes, no, thank you, Matt. Effectively, as you all know, we've had something of an interesting year or two. We've had members coming out of the woodwork to help support the wider organisation. That's everything from just becoming new leaders, to running events, to just taking part in them. We've had people who have donated money to us, and I won't touch on that because someone else is going to do that. And we've had an awful lot of understanding from you all about, you know, having to cancel events and move things around and everything else. And for that, all we can really say is we are a member organisation. Without all of you, we don't exist. And indeed, all of us. You know what I mean? It's a long evening, isn't it? And yeah, fundamentally, it has been an absolute pleasure and honour, indeed, to know so many of you over the last few years. And especially over the last 18 months or so, I personally have had some help and support from some of you, for which I'm eternally grateful. And I know other people within the organisation, we really came together as a community and helped and supported each other. And I think it's one of the most amazing things that we could get out of any organisation.
Super, thank you, Simon. And again, you know, our members, and as we said, you are the ones that kept us going through this pandemic. So I think it is quite right at this AGM that we do give our thanks. Also, as Simon mentioned, our donations. So, Stephen, I'm going to hand over to you for the next slide because this is quite the number. So, Stephen, over to you.
Okay, so I'm looking for everybody to get their phones ready. And if you can load up the next slide for me, please, Matt. We heard earlier on today by Niels just how close our accounts were this year. And when we look at this figure that we've got here of over £8,000 that was donated, including gift aid to Outdoor Lads from March 2020, it's an amazing figure. And thank you very much. But what I would like you all to do now really is scan the QR code that's on the screen, and that will take you to the Virgin Money giving page. And you can favorite that on your phone and bookmark it, because it's often easy to forget when we're paying to go on events and we're enjoying Outdoor Lads activities. Outdoor Lads is actually a charity, and we can raise money for charities, but we often think we go and do a walk and we say, let's raise money for a charity. But Outdoor Lads is your charity, and you can all raise money for us and you can all contribute to this. We're looking at another year where our finances may be tight. So it would be amazing to get another figure similar to that in this financial year and to help us make sure that we bolster our finances going forward. So anything you can do to raise money for Outdoor Lads, pass on this link that you'll favorite on your phone and share it with as many people as possible. And thank you very much to everybody that donated. Thank you very much.
Super. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, £8,148.99. What a staggering amount of money from a number of people in the organisation. Some giving very generous amounts, some giving regular small amounts. It's a brilliant amount. And thank you so much to everyone who were able to contribute us through this period. Thank you so much. So, gentlemen, we are now coming to the end of the agenda, and a couple more slides to go. So, Neil, can I hand over to you for your?
Thank you, Matt. And of course, you know, as Stephen just said, it's really important that we continue to act like we're a charity and fundraise like we're a charity. So if you haven't seen the event page, on the 9th of October, there's a bunch of Outdoor Lads that are doing the Whopping Great Wander, which is basically a 25-mile walk starting in Hertfordshire, walking all the way down to London, out to the East End and back under the other side of through the Woolwich Tunnel and along the South Bank, finishing up at the Cutty Sark. So 25 miles, that is a marathon, literally. So 20 people are already signed up. Everybody's getting together to raise sponsorship. So if you want to join us, please come along. I've walked 22 miles of this route already. It is pretty awesome. But of course, we're not just fundraising for us. We're fundraising also for the LGBT switchboard too, because not only do we have a few members who volunteer for the switchboard, but of course, people come to Outdoor Lads through things like the switchboard. And we thought it was really important to, you know, celebrate and to fundraise for another charity at the same time. So 50-50 split. Come and join us, come and do the 25 miles. And if you don't fancy it, again, the link's there. Please sponsor us. Please chuck 10 quid, 5 quid, 20 quid, whatever you've got at someone you know who's doing this walk with us. And of course, like I said, everybody's welcome.
Great, thank you, Neil. Again, I'll just leave it up on the screen just for a couple more moments so that people can take a picture of the screen or do it if they want to. Fantastic, yeah, please do get signed up to that event. Okay. Right, so a couple more thank yous, gents, before we wrap up this evening. So my first set of thank yous this year goes out to Nick Reed and both Dave Banks, who again this year provided an enormous amount of help to the board in a number of different areas. Nick Reed, who you may have seen has had a reasonably big event this weekend, gave the board a lot of help and advice through our insurance arrangements and added as a technical advisor to the board. Again, to Dave, who helped with a number of systems and processes during that period to get us ready, the participation statements, the things that you might have heard Dave mentioned. Without their input, we wouldn't have been able to get where we are today. So a big thank you to those both. I'd also like to give a special mention to the staff team here at Outdoor Lads. Outdoor Lads is very fortunate as a charity that we employ 3 people, Liam, Dan and Yvonne, who work in our office. This year has been unbelievably challenging for not only us as an organisation, but for those 3 as individuals. Their professionalism, their grit, their resolve and their commitment to the organisation in this last 12 to 18 months has astounded me, and it continues to outstand the board. So I think we do as an AGM need to give our thanks to our absolutely amazing team that have kept things going on behind the scenes, even in pretty bad times of adversity. And I think it's absolutely right that we celebrate them and what they've done. So a big, big, big thank you to our absolutely wonderful staff team. So thank you to you 3. So this also brings me to another big thank you, and again, I want to take a time to give our thanks. So we do have 2 trustees whose time on the board has now come to an end. So Neil Sharp and Dan Barcroft, who you've heard of this evening, their term on the board is now coming to an end, and this will be their last formal trustee board with us. Neil, in his past, has been not only been a walk leader, but one of our trustees who previously helped with the trustee for leader responsibility. And I think one of the cruxes of what Neil has made the board and the organisation see is our focus on leader development, leader training, enshrining that we need to focus on some of the softer skills, the entry points into becoming a leader of the organisation. And I think, that should hopefully be our ethos. And when we talk about leader training, we talk about leader development, I think Neil has helped enshrine that within our culture. Dan on the board has helped work on a number of different areas around the foundation. The social giving has been a big part of the comms group, thinking about our comms strategies and what we want to do going forward. And though this isn't part of Dan's formal trustee responsibility, has been a pretty big stable part of the big events, helping with the entertainment, the DJing. And though Dan is stepping down from retirement of trusteeship, he's not yet allowed to step down from retirement of being a DJ, and we look forward to seeing him at Spring Camp next year. So, gentlemen, on behalf of the organisation, thank you so much for everything that you've done on the board, taking the organisation through a very, very, very difficult period. And we hope to see you on a big event or something sometime soon. Thank you, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you again. So, thank you very much, both. Okay, so gents, we are at the end of the meeting for today. This is the last opportunity. If anybody has any other business which they would like to raise or inquire about, now is your opportunity. So, Liam, can I ask from the floor, are there any other business questions that have been brought forward?
I don't have questions that are still live and haven't either been answered, or we've said we'll answer, post-meeting. So there's no questions. Lots of thanks coming in for Neil and Dan, though, which is nice to see. So thank you very much.
Thank you, gents.
And there's no hands up either.
Fantastic. So that is any other business ticked off. So as we're now closing the AGM, we now look towards what the future is going to be looking like. So what are the organisational priorities for 21 going into 22? At an absolute heart, running amazing Outdoor Lads events. If you, for those that joined us at the 15th birthday party, us as Outdoor Lads at our core, we run fantastic outdoor events that bring people together. It's the crux of what we do and what we will be doing going forward. It will always remain our priority that us as an organisation, we run amazing Outdoor Lads events, and that's what we will be doing over the next 12 months. We need to do an insurance refresher for our leaders. We're now 6 months into the new insurance arrangements. We just need to make sure that we are still meeting all the requirements and all the things that we needed to do to make sure that we are compliant. As mentioned, our Christmas programme is back. And that again is integral to making sure that we finish the year on a level pegging. So our events programme is live at Christmas, and we really hope to get as many people there as as possible. So looking into the event program for 2022, that will become sort of our immediate focus now, about getting the events in the diary for 2022 and deliver spring camp. An awful amount's been chatted about this year, but we now, our attention needs to turn to the event program for next year. Leader training and development, as Danny has already said, will be one of our priorities to deliver and upskill our leaders for next year. The VAT changes that we've already talked about, that will become the changes and the considerations and where we think about where we spend about that money. And as Danny mentioned, the strategic planning. There's a lot to do, and it's a pretty big program of events. And as mentioned throughout this meeting, we need you guys with your creatism, your enthusiasm and your energy to come forward and help deliver this. But hopefully this time next year at the AGM, we can talk about these points and hopefully reflect that we've had a really, really good 12 months. Gents, I'm going to finish on this for this evening. Now, obviously, this year has been difficult. And for many of us, COVID and the restrictions, and for those hopefully that have read my section in the annual report, one of the cruel ironies of the pandemic, as though lockdown was designed to keep us safe, the isolation and the loneliness that was created as a result. If anything, it shines a focus on what Outdoor Lads is and what it is about. But for those of you on the call who may find yourself struggling, there is help out there. For those people who worry and aren't having a good time, look at these numbers, please use them if you need be, and make sure that if you do have friends, check on each other and make sure everybody is okay. But fundamentally, look after yourselves and look after each other. So, gentlemen, this now brings the AGM 2021 to a close. Thank you everyone who has joined this evening, who's asked questions, who has contributed. I've said it many times throughout this evening that ODL has come out of this pandemic and we are in a good place. The future is looking very, very, very positive with our cash injection, thinking about the future, and we're looking forward to our event programme for next year. It's been an absolute pleasure to be chair of this trustee board for the last 12 months, to see what our amazing volunteers and leaders have developed and delivered. And I look forward to working with all of you and seeing what the charity can do in the next 12 months. So on that note, we will draw the meeting to a close. On behalf of everyone on the board, thank you so much for giving up 2 hours of your evening on a Monday night in September to go through the formal business. And I think we will close it there. Thank you, gents. Take care and look after yourselves. Thank you, everyone.